G'day guys, welcome back to the lab. Right, this video is a bit of a mess actually. Fixing the engine that's going to go into the ute. So followed through with the process and changed my mind so many times. You're going to see me saying I'm going to do this and then I'll go and do something different, and that's just what happens. Second-hand motor, I pulled it apart and repaired it a long time ago, and obviously wasn't that crash hot at the time, which is why I wasn't working on customer stuff, and made a few mistakes and a couple of bad calls on the way, which is why I pulled it apart just now to make sure what I was going to put into the ute was actually worthy of putting into the ute. My stereo also died, the one that used to live on the wall over there by the lathe. Damn thing. I think you might have noticed, I posted something up somewhere, and give it a hit with a hammer and it would go for a couple of minutes and then the radio would die again. And tapes aren't much fun. You have to change the tape over every, 30 minutes on a tape, half a tape. So that wasn't much chop. I went to one of the hardware stores and bought a stereo today. The speakers on it were rubbish. So of course, being the lab, it's got modified straight away. Those are the Infinity Kappa 6x9s that used to live in the Blue Z that we had. So it sounds heaps better with those on there. So that's all good. But anyway, there is the motor, mostly ready to go back into the ute. So the inlet manifold's not bolted onto it yet because the water system needs to be finished up, and most of the parts we can steal off the motor that's actually in the ute right now. So it's back together as a good motor. It's not an overhauled motor, it's a repaired motor, and it's second-hand parts and stuff, so it'll be fine for me. For a customer, I'd recommend they just spend the extra money and get the brand new parts while they're at it, because how many hours? Oh, it's probably 20 hours worth of work to pull it all to pieces and put it all back together. 85 bucks an hour plus GST. If you were paying for that, you'd definitely spend a little bit extra and pay for the new bearings, new rings, which I didn't put in that. It's actually got second-hand bearings, and the rings have been cleaned up, ready to go again. A lot of people are cringing. It's going to be fine. Trust me. Or don't trust me. It doesn't matter. This is my ute, and if it smokes a little bit, that's my bad, and I have to fix it, not you. So you can laugh when it goes bad. If it goes bad, it won't go bad. Yeah, so this video's a bit, yeah, just watch it. All right, cheers, boy. Welcome back to the lab. Right, today, playing with the engine in the ute. So the ute's got a VK45DE. It's pretty rubbish sort of engine, really. It's been converted by myself to port injection of sorts, more like manifold injection. The result is the injectors are quite a long way away from the inlet valves and the heads. You get a lot of fuel condensating in the ports and in the manifold and all that sort of carry on. Results in a pretty big hesitation at slower speeds while the engine's warming up before the manifold's got enough temp to keep enough fuel evaporation so that we get correct mixtures and stuff when you're trying to accelerate the engine. Babble. So let's have a look at a VK45DE, which I've got two of. One, you can often see the cylinder heads lying under the bench that's over yonder, and the other one hides in the other garage. So let's have a look at one of those. So here we have a VK45DE. So this is the correct port injection style motor, not the direct injection style motor. For those of you that aren't familiar or haven't listened to the rest of it or didn't want to, too bad, you're going to hear it now. You'll see there's two inlet ports way down yonder, right down at the bottom of the head. It splits into two, right, because there's two valves. On a direct injection motor, they've actually put a fuel injector right down in here, and they've split this main intake port into two separate ports entirely, the whole way up. So then, when it goes into the manifold, you have to try and find a point where it merges into one. Otherwise, you end up having to run either 16 injectors, 2 times 8, 16, or one injector per cylinder, meaning one valve's not going to get any fuel on it to cool it, which is not ideal. Probably doesn't matter so much with an engine like this. I mean, the valves are designed to run with no fuel going on them at all anyway, right? Because direct injection, you do get a lot of carbon build-up and stuff in direct injection engines, which possibly has been happening in my motor, and it might be why it's running so crappy. It's good when it's warmed up, but man, when she's cold and warming up, It's terrible. So this is where the injectors would normally live, on a standard port injection motor, right? So here's an injector. You saw the little notches in the inlet manifold, in the inlet ports. That's basically so those injectors can fire straight down that hole towards the inlet valves, which is the ideal situation. It's not what we have in my one. So this motor, I put it back together. It was a combination of second-hand parts. It's not a rebuilt motor. I'd call it maybe repaired. Might even be slightly sketchy. It's my own stuff. Doesn't really matter if it breaks. Cobbled it together out of a couple of second-hand engines. I got really cheap and made an engine. Did that some time ago. This thing has been sitting in our other little garage there for a long time. You can see the corrosion that's built up on everything. So before I go any further with this, I'm going to take it apart. I'm going to recheck all the valve clearances, make sure nothing's rusty, take the front covers off. I use this orange silicone, which some people don't like. This is actually the proper stuff for sumps, which doesn't normally cause problems, but it does look a bit rungy. So I'll take these covers off. I'll use some 3 bond, because that's a nice grey colour like what the factory uses, and it doesn't stand out like this stuff does. And I think it's a little bit more resistant to fuel, whereas this orange heat-proof silicone, oil-proof silicone, you get a little bit of fuel in your oil and it tends to fall apart really quickly compared to 3 bond. So while I'm at it, we'll get rid of those. I might even talk to some mates at Collins Profile Cutting and see if they want to vapor blast these front covers for us, make it all look beautiful while we're at it. This is one of those occasions where you go, at least I checked everything before I chucked it in there. So I'm not sure what state I was in when I put this together. Probably not very good. Probably still quite banged up from the big crash all that time ago. I think cam timing's out for one thing. It doesn't seem to line up with where it should do according to where the pistons are at. So that's interesting. I've checked with, there's a manual there that we've printed out. So I've checked all the valve clearances. Feeler gauges there. Driver's side head, good. Don't forget Americans, we drive on the other side of the road, so right hand cylinder head is our driver's side cylinder head. Passenger side, we've got too much valve clearance on these 2 exhaust valves, like quite a lot. It should be around 10 thou to 13 thou thousandths of an inch, and we've got more like 20 or a bit more than that perhaps, and that one there as well. That one's good. The rest of them are all fine, so a little bit funny there. And I thought, okay, maybe there's a little bit of crap sitting on the valves and they're not seating properly and it's holding them away from the followers, cam followers, and that could cause our clearance issue. So I got my my regulator. There it is there, and my little fitting I've done there to do a poor man's leak down test on it. And inlet valves are leaking quite heavily on this one. At that point, you stop. There's no point fluffing around with this any further. It needs to come apart, see what's going on with it. This camshaft has to come out regardless to deal with these valve clearances one way or another. So, you know, there's no rush to get it in the ute. I do want to get it in, but there's no major rush. So I'm just going to pull it to pieces. Whipped the passenger side head off. Little bit of crap sitting on top of the pistons, not a lot, just carbon and stuff. Bores are okay, they're not minty. You can see some very light scratching there. That one does have a scratch that you can feel with your fingers, just certainly smaller than what the ring gaps are, and I wouldn't be concerned about it. Might smoke a tiny little bit, but wouldn't worry me for my own personal thing. As I suspected, as you can see right smack bang in the middle of the photo there in the frame, it's just all this loose carbon and stuff there's a piece right in the middle of the frame there that's come away, just sitting on the valve seats. That's what the issue was with the valve clearance and the poor leak down test. However, no massive rush, and it's at this point, so I'm going to whip all the valves out, clean all the valve seats up, change the valve guide seals, pull the other head off, do the same with that one. There's a couple of things I'm looking at here. Bit of corrosion. Probably need to give the heads a skim as well, which is well and truly beyond the capabilities of the little beast on the bench there, so that would need to go into town to someone. So yeah, she's turning into one of those jobs. Look at that mess there. It's corrosion from it sitting around too long. That would actually blow the head gasket before long. Yeah, doesn't matter, does it? Everything's got to be reset and all that. So yep, oh, I'll keep tearing it apart. We'll get on with it. All valves, spring seats, valve guide seals, springs obviously, and keepers, and all that stuff's all been taken out. The whole thing's been stripped pretty bare, relatively clean now. That's inlet ports, they're easy to clean. Exhaust ports, still a little bit of gunk in there, but not too bad for what we're doing. That's probably above and beyond what we need to do, but that's all ready. Here's my pliers that I use to remove the old valve guide seals, by the way. Those are a real good tool for that. Takes a couple of seconds compared to any other options. And new valve guide seals there that I've had in stock for quite some time. Bought those probably at least 3 years ago through Z1 Motorsports. So I'll put all those new guides in there. All the valves are all cleaned up. They're all ready to go. Excuse my slightly untidy workbench. Not ideal for rebuilding engines, but it is actually clean. It's just messy. So and we have a cleaner area, except for the parts cleaner I just sprayed all over it, making it look yucky. But we have a cleaner area for the more important bits, assembling the heads and stuff like that. So I'll get on with that. I'll put all the guides and everything all back together. It's nearly 4 o'clock. I said to our young one, I won't be too long. That was a long time ago. While I'm here, I'm going to pop those pistons back out and just double check the rings and everything. I mean, ideally you'd go and get a new set of rings and bearings, but it's probably over $1,000 to do that. And by the time you do that, you just get a second-hand engine that's running. I don't really want to do that. I want to use this one. So I will carry on. Right, so one pair, I guess you'd say, springs and keepers and everything in just here. Camshaft turned to the appropriate position according to the service manual. Service manual says between 10 thou and 13 thou. What we've got here is 15, 10. There probably is a 13 actually on the set. Why don't I look for that? Nah, I can't be bothered. For what we're doing, this is fine. If it's 15 thou, it'll be a little bit ticky, but that's alright. 10. Smoke's in there, so it's not too tight. Goes in that one as well, and that's good. Means it's not too tight. It won't hold the valve open and lose compression. 15 doesn't go in. Too tight. So that means it's somewhere between about 11 or 12 and 15, which is all good. I'll have a look actually. Should we have a look? This is a real funny set. This came from the Malaysian Air Force. This is really, really, really hard to do with one hand. So what's in this set is to suit the Wasp helicopters. Hey, there's 12. Use a 12. So it doesn't actually have everything you'd expect it to have. It's got a bunch of measurements that were handy for the Rolls-Royce Nimbus engine and the Westland Wasp helicopters that I worked on for a little bit. So 12. What's the bet 12 goes in there? They're not in the best condition, are they? So if a 12 doesn't go in there, it does go in there. Ooh. So we're somewhere between 12 and 15. The limit is 13, so this engine might be a little bit ticky. Little bit tick, 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 tick. But that's alright. That'll be fine. I might, off camera, I'll fiddle around with these and see if I can figure out 13. It's going to be a combination of two of those gauges in there. So I'll do that. We'll see what happens. So 10 plus 3, that's 13. Don't mind the radio. Phil Collins in the air tonight if I have to give credit for it. Snug fit in there. So we're right on the limit for the maximum. At 13, yeah, snug fit on that one as well. Close. Not bad though, like, it's on the extreme of the limit. It's not actually past it, so that's alright. If we can do that for the rest of them, then I'll be happy. I can actually just give those valves a slight lap in, and it will tighten that up, and we might be closer to the middle. So, but I can't be bothered doing that. And then things got really complicated, and I dragged out the micrometers and had a bit of a shuffle with the cam followers. So they may have been put back in the wrong spot when I had it apart, or it could be just because a few miles on it, things move around. Conveniently, Nissan have labelled them. Oh, where's the bloody part number? There you go, you can see that. It says 814U. So when you measure that with the micrometers, that's going to be 8.14 millimeters. So that's quite handy, because you can just go through and go, that's too big, that's too small, blah blah blah, and you can look at the part numbers and just shuffle them around and then double check the measurements, because things appear to have changed a little bit with use, and get everything right. So now we've got all the exhaust valves on this one are all dead right. We did have 3 of them were wrong to start with. Took apart, fixed it, put it back together. Of course, we've taken the whole inlet side apart as well, and we're putting that back together, so that's probably all changed again as well. So I have to go through that whole side and sort that out. No sense in just doing one head. So tomorrow that's going to come off there. We'll do the whole deal with that one as well, cleaning it all up and everything, same as this. Yeah, like I say, pull the pistons back out, check all the bearings and everything. Might even check with Repco and see how much it's going to cost us for a set of rings and bearings. If we do that, then we've actually got a properly rebuilt engine. So that wouldn't hurt, I guess. So much for me just saying, oh, just do a nice cheap repair. It's not going to be. Never mind, it'll be good. And I'll get that into the ute eventually. And we'll have a nice motor that doesn't have little quirks and faults and funny things going on. So all these here are one of the dead motors from the March. I pulled those all out of its dusty box there just to check all those, but unfortunately those sizings aren't going to work. They're all 8.14, 8.808. So none of those are going to work with these. These are all 8.2s and 8.3s. So never mind. So much for just a quick check, make sure everything's okay before it goes back into, or goes into the ute. Yeah, the crank's going to come out of there as well. So bearings and conrods, you can see that even through there. Some of them are not very good at all. Some of them are whoopsie daisies. So I don't even remember what happened with this engine when I had a fiddle around with it. I'm picking based on what I saw with the bore here. This is the one that a screw came loose inside the manifold and went in and had to go at the top of the piston. I think this is the one that I literally just went, cool, I'm just going to do a repair and nothing else. Pull that one piston out and replace it with another one, give the bore a tidy up, put it back together, use it at that. Obviously the amount of carbon that I've had to clean off all the pistons around where the rings go and everything, she wasn't going to go very well at all, but they're all looking lovely now, all cleaned up, ready to go for some new rings, or I don't know, I could put those in, but new rings aren't buried here. So anyway, in other news, yeah, that's the shop stereo right there. Today is the day the music died. Yes, the CD player does not CD The tape player does not tape, and the radio does not radio. Well, it did, but you kind of had to hit it with the big crescent here. Give it a whack every couple of minutes and the music would keep going, and then you'd be right in the middle of something over here working on your absolute mess on all here, and the music would stop. I got fed up with that, and I'll tell you what, it doesn't make a very good javelin either, but it's travelled a fair distance. Never mind, that'll probably do for this video. I'm going to keep cleaning things up, and I might follow on through with actually putting everything back together and showing you how to measure up bloody bearings and all that sort of carry on. I should have shown you how to do the clearances on the valves, but never mind, that's done. Don't worry, those head gaskets, although they're brand new, they'll get chucked out. I've got brand new ones over on the shelf, so we'll use those. Yeah, and this is the head off the other side, and it's down there because I've decided that that's unacceptable. That's where the screw was giving a bit of a nugga. It's not actually going to affect the way it runs or anything, except it might develop hot spots and cause detonation and stuff. So, over there behind the drill and the brake clean, there's 2 cylinder heads there. I'm going to pull one of those out. I'm sure it'll be better than this one here. And I'll refurb that one instead of this one. We'll actually have a decent engine instead of a pile of junk that was just chucked together with no intention of being too fussy with anything at all. Now it'll be a properly reconditioned engine. So, that's all good. Alright, cheers, bye.